All right, you guys, welcome to Old State Saloon for tonight's Saloon Cast. It's called Comey Indicted, the domino that topples Clinton, Weiner, Pizzagate, and Epstein, and hopefully all of the other evil nonsense that's going on. Let's go over a few rules here while people are gathering online, I think following for tuning in for tonight's presentation by Liz. We already went over, if your beeper goes off, silence that so people at home don't listen to your beeper going off. And what else? If you want to get a drink or go to the restroom, that's totally fine. You can get up and do that. Just keep in mind that we have a crowd of people here and there's a presentation happening and we're trying to be respectful, not engaging in conversations that would conflict with everything that's happening. I'm excited about tonight because it's another night where we can hopefully put truth out there, people can receive it, and we can do something about it. Liz and I as we arrived here, we took a moment, we prayed, and we both have that bond of a faith in Jesus Christ as our Savior, which is something I'm super thankful for. And so we prayed for tonight, and we prayed that our nation would be changed because of the truth that people are willing to start stepping up and speaking out loud and shining a light on and identifying these things. So this is another one of those nights. We are live on this Salooncast, and so we're on our channel, we're on X and Rumble on our channels, and then we're also broadcasting on Liz's channels as well on YouTube, which she just got back recently, which was awesome after not having it was taken from her for 5 years or something like that. All right, our mission here, hopefully I'm able to read this from across the room. Our mission is to foster, holy moly, transformative events that transcend screens, where facts and ideas converge in the pursuit of truth, unflinching, and even in its most stark revelation. We all follow truth seekers. We all fellow truth seekers. I need to read this way. It's too far. All right. We call fellow truth seekers to step away from digital devices to convene in person, engaging deeply with news, facts, and ideas. Ultimately, we encourage conservative truth seekers to take action, exposing deception and evil whenever possible, championing truth as an unwavering beacon of integrity. Who has never been to Old State Saloon tonight? If you've never been here, would you raise your hand? Oh, we got 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 people. Awesome. Thank you for being here. That's where we're live. Next slide. Couple little quick announcements. We've got breakfast now. A lot of people just think we're a nighttime bar. We actually are pretty much a restaurant, all ages until 8 p.m., starting with breakfast in the morning. It's local. A lot of it's organic. We make the English muffins in-house, believe it or not, with our team. Next, as I said, we're all ages till 8 p.m., and that was like a new thing after a couple years of being 21 and over. We had a lot of people, a lot of families wanting to be involved with what we're doing here, so I'm very happy to announce that. And we have a child's menu, a separate child's menu, which people were asking for, and I'm sure that'll be very popular. As always, we give free coffee 24/7 to veterans here. It's organic, it's awesome, and it's I made the same mistake last night. It's made locally. We don't grow the beans locally, obviously. Roasted, that's the word. I was looking for the roasted word. It's roasted locally by a veteran-owned company. If you want to support us, one big way you can do that is by purchasing our merch. You can do it right here if you're here tonight, and if you're online, you can do that on our website, oldstatesaloon.com. We have a store on there where you can purchase our merch. We just released some sweatshirts, which are here in person, but they're not yet online. I think we do have one of them online, but we have different options here for you guys in person if you're interested. That's a good way to help us out because there's a lot of expenses that go into these extra events. While you're watching, whether you're here in the room tonight, this is a number that you can text a question to for Liz. We had a lot of questions last night texted in. If you are home watching, you can text your question in. That's probably the best way because it's a little bit too difficult to try to go to the comment sections of the different places where it's being broadcast. So using this number to text in. But if you're in the room, I encourage you to raise your hand for your question. I'll bring the microphone to you, and you can ask the question to Liz and say hello to her for a few seconds while you're asking your question. That's a big difference about what we do here These aren't just presentations where somebody comes and people clap for them and they leave. It's a requirement at Old State Saloon that they stick around and be willing to take a Q&A from an audience. And that, if you think about that, if you're somebody online who has a big following and everything, if you're concerned about deception and truth, that fact right there could really scare you, you know, because you're standing up here and somebody could say something that, or ask something that could be pretty disconcerting for somebody to try to answer in front of a live audience and online. And so that's why I really applaud the people who do decide to come here. And it makes me feel even more like they're truly people who are seeking truth and want truth because they're willing to be in public and take the questions. I'm going to read you something that an attorney would like me to read you. It's a disclaimer. The topics covered at tonight's Salooncast are not meant to be a starting point for, they are meant to be a starting point for launching critical thinking, meaningful discussion, and potentially to be a catalyst for you to take action to help make this world a better place. Although much of what is presented may quite clearly be bold truth in a weak world clouded in deception, the content covered is not meant to be something presented as being certainly true. The views and theories represented in tonight's presentation do not necessarily reflect the views, opinions, and beliefs of Old State Saloon, any affiliated sponsors, nor any of the company's employees, managers, stockholders, or owners, or bartenders. If you are easily offended, you may want to vacate the premises now. Some content you may deem to be inappropriate, unsettling, or ultimately life-changing. This content could also mess with the CIA programming you have endured for decades. I'm starting to feel like I should change that to CIA/Mossad programming you've endured for decades. Viewer discretion is advised. All right, so the woman of the hour that I'm going to introduce, I'm super excited. We've become fast friends. She's a trooper. She was one of the original people fighting and pushing out truth online, and she took some heat for it for sure. She's had a challenging last several years of just having all of your work. Imagine doing all this work and having this audience and you're sharing truth with them and everything, and then they just take it from you and it's gone one day, just completely gone. And that's happened to people like Liz. I know there's someone else here, Jordan Sather's in the audience. That's happened to him. I'm sure some other of you here have had your accounts taken from you just for posting things that are true that go against the mainstream narrative or whatever else. But she's a trooper. I called her. She was happy to accept the invitation to come out here. And yet, one more time, another person that I invite out here who never mentioned that they wanted to be paid. And after getting to know her, I know that she is like the rest of us. She's struggling to figure out how to pay bills and everything. So you should, if you appreciate what she's doing, you should look into, hey, how can I support Liz? I think she has things online, a shop. I think she has other ways you can support her investigative reporting that she would appreciate. But I'm so thankful for her just generosity with her time and effort to come out here, and I'm super happy to introduce you. And would you please give a big round of applause for my friend Liz Crokin?
Okay. Hello, everybody. Old State Saloon. I guess I didn't bore too many of you guys too much last night because a bunch of you came back, so that's a good sign. What'd you say?
My phone.
Oh, you okay?
That's your phone.
Thank you. Okay. So for those of you that were here last night, I hope you enjoyed Slave Princess. Last night we talked about, Britney Spears and Lou Taylor and, the pedophilia that goes on in Hollywood and how it also ties to DC. And tonight we are going to focus on the deep state cabal and how Comey is the first domino, in my opinion, of many that will fall, and we are going to see the whole house of cards fall. And I will explain why it's my strong opinion that Comey will lead to the indictment and arrest of other deep state players like Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, Brennan Clapper, John Podesta, Uma Abedin, all of them, okay? And so I'm going to start off by saying that I'm an eternal optimist, and I always try to see the good. And I know that there's so many people, including myself, that have been extremely frustrated that we have not seen more arrests, we have not seen more justice, and I get it. The wheels of justice, unfortunately, turn very slow, but they do grind fine. And I just want to start off by reminding people that in President Trump's first term, we actually did see a lot of arrests. Number one, Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, their other co-conspirator, Jean-Luc Brunel. We also saw people involved in Nexium get arrested. We saw that President Trump took down Backpage because they were involved in child sex trafficking. And we also saw his administration, his DOJ, arrest a lot of these cartel members, MS-13. This was all during his first term. And people tend to forget that that happened, or a lot of people don't even know that a lot of these arrests happened because the mainstream media, of course, did not cover a lot of those things. So, okay, then we had the Biden presidency. So we had 4 years of hell with that, of course. And now, thank God, we have President Trump back in office. And yeah, praise Jesus on that. So we have President Trump back in office, and in September, James Comey got indicted. Okay, that is a very big deal. And here is the key thing that is very important for people to understand with his indictment is that his indictment involved alleged crimes that have to do with Crossfire Hurricane, aka the Russiagate hoax, which you guys all know was the conspiracy to frame Trump. And Comey's indictment also has to do with Hillary Clinton's email investigation. Okay, so the Russiagate hoax, we know, didn't just involve James Comey. It also involved, as I mentioned earlier, all the other deep state players. So people like Barack Obama, Brennan, Clapper, Strzok, Page, and the lover, and the lovers, as President Trump calls them. But Comey's indictment also involves the FBI and his involvement in investigating Hillary Clinton for her emails and the use of the illegal server. So I want to get into that a little bit and try to tie in why I believe that this indictment will not only lead to the exposure of Hillary Clinton's crimes, I believe it will lead to her arrest. So if we go back in time, Hillary Clinton, as most of you know, unfortunately, she was first lady in the 90s when her pervert husband, Bill Clinton, was president. And, we also know that she served in the Senate. And under Obama, she was the Secretary of State. Now, it was during that time that Hillary Clinton was allegedly using the illegal server, right? And of course, she got away with that years ago. So that I think she was Secretary of State from 2009 to 2013. So she was using the legal server, and allegedly there was classified information on that server via her emails. All right. So that happens. And we also know that, she bleach bit a bunch of things and she smashed a bunch of devices, and nothing happened to her. All this was exposed years ago, but there was no justice served, right? So, okay, fast forward to 2015. A certain man rode down an escalator and announced he was running for president. And that would, of course, be Donald J. Trump. Now, who was he running for president against? Hillary Clinton, right? And that was probably the most controversial and heated presidential election we've ever had, because they clearly absolutely despise each other. So we have President Trump as the Republican nominee, and then we have Hillary Clinton as the Dem nominee. And because she's the Dem nominee, it's coming up over and over again, even in the mainstream media, about, the use of her legal server and her email scandal. So at this point in time, James Comey was the director of the FBI. So early in 2016, he opened up that investigation, and he kind of made it seem as though he was going to do something about it. And basically what he did is he said that he looked into it, and he believed that, although she was reckless, he didn't believe that any charges should be filed against her. So here Hillary Clinton is once again, getting away with alleged crimes. So that happened in early 2016. Fast forward to a few months later, something else happened. Hillary Clinton's top aide was a woman named Uma Abedin. Who was she married to in 2016? Yes, Anthony Weiner. Now, what was Anthony Weiner involved in? He was involved in a scandal where he was sexting with a child. So what happened later on in 2016 is that the NYPD opened an investigation into just Anthony Weiner for sexting with a child. Through that investigation, the NYPD found evidence on that laptop that included Hillary Clinton's emails, his then wife, Uma Abedin's emails, and other evidence that implicated Hillary Clinton, Uma, other Clinton associates, and the Clinton Foundation. So that would be Bill and Hillary Clinton's foundation. The NYPD found evidence on that laptop that implicated all of them in several crimes. Some of those crimes were money laundering, pay to play, but the worst crimes were that there was evidence on that laptop proving that Hillary Clinton, the Clinton associates, and the Clinton Foundation were involved in crimes against children, specifically sex crimes against children. So what happened then is that when this came out, and by the way, I will just add one thing. The NYPD detectives that found the evidence proving that Hillary and some of her associates were involved in sex crimes against children, they saw that evidence. And when these hardened detectives saw that evidence on Anthony Weiner's laptop, it made some of them so sick and disturbed that they physically were throwing up. They had to seek counseling. They needed psychological help. That's how bad the evidence was implicating Hillary Clinton and her associates and her foundations of crimes against children. So this came out. It wasn't far and wide, but it came out. True Pundit did a great story on this in 2016. So this came out. I was reporting on this back then. And James Comey then got a lot of pressure to investigate again or reopen the investigation into Hillary Clinton's emails after the scandal came out with Anthony Weiner and after the NYPD found all the evidence on the laptop implicating all of them in just horrific crimes. So a few days before the election, he announced that he was going to look at this case again and kind of made it seem like he actually was going to do something about it. And so he announced that he was going to look into this again. And he basically then ultimately concluded the same thing, that, she was reckless, but we're not going to pursue, any kind of charges. And then it was dropped. The NYPD at that time, a lot of the detectives and or officers that were working on that case, they wanted to blow the whistle on all of this. They wanted everyone involved to be charged and prosecuted because they were so obviously horrified about what they saw on the laptop. But their hands got tied when Comey moved in. The FBI took over the case. And essentially what happened is the FBI came in and did nothing. Or to probably be more accurate, the FBI came in and basically just covered everything up. They swept everything under the rug. And okay, so again, Hillary Clinton appeared to just get away with everything. Again, nothing happened to her. James Comey covered for her, and then the FBI, swept all these crimes under the rug. So that is what ended up happening in 2016. And then, of course, we know that Hillary Clinton lost the election. And then, thank God, by some miracle, they weren't able to steal the election in 2016. And Donald Trump won. And she did not become president, okay? So fast forward to then, 2018. Now, in 2016, when I was exposing all of this, I was slandered by the entire mainstream media. Everybody thought that this was crazy. Everybody thought it was a conspiracy theory. Like, no one believed that the evidence on Anthony Weiner's laptop proved that Hillary Clinton and associates were involved in crimes against children. So fast forward to 2018. The Inspector General did a report on all of this. Comey, the Clinton email investigation, and they concluded and cited in that report that the evidence found on Anthony Weiner's laptop implicated Hillary Clinton and her associates in the Clinton Foundation of crimes against children. So that validated the True Pundit's report. That validated what I was reporting at the time. That validated what a lot of NYPD officers were saying. They were saying it anonymously, by the way, but a lot of them, were talking to reporters, people like me. It validated all of that. So that IG report proved that it was real, that there was evidence found on Anthony Weiner's laptop proving that Hillary Clinton is involved in the rape, torture, and trafficking of children. And they used the Clinton Foundation as a front to do that, okay? So that was validated in the IG report in 2018. Now, the reason why I'm feeling very confident that Comey's indictment will lead to the arrest of Hillary Clinton is because, first of all, I believe that this will turn into a superseding indictment. I do believe that there will be other indictments with other deep state players. There'll be other charges. And I do believe that once they start going over all of this evidence and exposing all of this evidence, it will ultimately lead to the evidence that was found on Anthony Weiner's laptop, exposing that these people were involved in crimes against children. So that is why I very strongly believe that James Comey is only the first domino of many dominoes that will fall. And something else that I want to say to keep you guys, optimistic is that there is a grand jury that has been impaneled that is supposed to take place in January in Fort Pierce, Florida. And this grand jury is going to be exposing everyone involved in the Russiagate and Crossfire Hurricane, and also the raid on President Trump's home. And Mike Davis, who's a good friend of mine, he has been doing interviews almost every single day talking about this. And he's been very vocal and very blunt, and he has said repeatedly over and over again that James Comey is just the appetizer. And he's just been going on X, and he's been telling all the deep state players to lawyer up because justice is finally coming, and these people will face justice. So, yes. So this is why I believe Comey is the first domino, and I am very optimistic that it will lead to the takedown of the other deep state players, including Hillary Clinton, and it will also lead to the exposure of their involvement in the Clinton Foundation and their involvement in child sex trafficking. Now, there's so many other plays happening right now. So for example, Attorney General Pam Bondi and FBI Director Kash Patel just sent over a bunch of documents to Congress that allegedly prove that the Clinton Foundation was involved in pay-to-play. And so that ties back to the evidence that was found potentially on Anthony Weiner's laptop back in 2016, because the NYPD detectives that found the evidence on Anthony Weiner's laptop found that Hillary Clinton and the Clinton Foundation were involved in pay-to-play, which they were, but that was just one of the crimes that was exposed in the evidence found on Anthony Weiner's laptop. And so, we don't know for sure what kind of evidence was sent over to Congress. It does have to do with pay-to-play for now, but again, I do believe that this will lead to the other crimes that Hillary Clinton and the Clinton Foundation was committing. The worst, of course, in my opinion, being crimes against children. Okay, so we have that going on with Comey. We have the grand jury happening in Fort Pierce. We have, all these new documents, exposing the Clinton Foundation and their crimes. President Trump's DOJ is sending that to Congress, okay? So moving forward, what else do we have happening that ties to Hillary Clinton, the Clinton Foundation, and crimes against children? We have Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein has been in the news. Everyone's been talking about Jeffrey Epstein on social media. So the latest that has happened with Jeffrey Epstein as of today is that today the House of Representatives passed a bill ordering the release of the Department of Justice files on Epstein. In a vote, it was 427-1. Okay? So we got to move in the right direction. And just so if you guys want to know who the person was that voted against it, do you guys know? It was Republican Representative Clay Higgins. What's in your closet, Clay? I don't know. Kind of shady. So those records are allegedly going to be released. I'm cautious about that because there are ongoing investigations and there are victims that need to be protected. I do also believe that there's been a lot of evidence that has been destroyed. So who knows what actually will be released, but it's a step in the right direction. But here's the bigger news and the more important news. Okay, just so you guys know what's on the screen right now. So I was talking about the 2018 IG report. So right there, that is a screenshot of the IG report that cites Hillary Clinton and Foundation and crimes against children. Came out in 2018. It's still live, on the internet, on an official government website, and it's on actually page 294. I have that memorized. Okay, so that's the latest thing that happened with Jeffrey Epstein today, which is, a positive step in the right direction. Yes, that is the True Pundit story. I highly recommend you read that, and that was from 2016. Okay, so here's the even better news that happened a few days ago. So this actually, I work for America's Future. I don't know if you guys are familiar with America's Future or General Flynn. So General Flynn's the head of America's Future, and I am part of a board at America's Future called Project Defend and Protect Our Children. So we give speeches, we go around the country, and we educate people on how to combat child sex trafficking. I do a lot of investigative reporting, and I write our newsletters. And the newsletter that we have for November that just came out today, one of the stories that I wrote is how President Trump's DOJ has officially launched an investigation into Jeffrey Epstein's potential co-conspirators and clients, specifically Reid Hoffman, Larry Summers, and former President Bill Clinton. There we go. Okay, this is important. So, a few days ago, President Trump announced this on his Truth Social page. That is the truth that he posted. So you'll notice that he singled out 3 men. And I think it's really key that one of the men that he singled out was Bill Clinton. Because anyone that has been paying attention knows that both Bill and Hillary Clinton were very close friends with Jeffrey Epstein. Not only close friends with Jeffrey Epstein and his co-conspirator, Ghislaine Maxwell, they both were involved in not only the Clinton Foundation, but the Clinton Global Initiative as well. So they were working together. Bill Clinton went to the island over 24 times. Hillary Clinton reportedly went to the island at least 6 times. They also would repeatedly go to Jeffrey Epstein's Zorro Ranch in New Mexico. That's the ranch where Jeffrey Epstein wanted to turn that ranch into a baby breeding farm because he believed that he had superior DNA. And he wanted to see the human race with his DNA. Like we need any more of that freak's DNA. But, they would bring Chelsea to the Zorro Ranch. We know that Ghislaine Maxwell went to Chelsea's wedding. So, they were as thick as thieves. They were very, very close to Jeffrey Epstein. And it's hilarious because the mainstream media for years has been trying to make it seem that President Donald Trump was good friends with Jeffrey Epstein, which is not true at all. He was working to take him down and has been working to take him down for a very long time. He kicked him out of Mar-a-Lago. He worked for the attorney that represented the victims. He was actually the only person in Jeffrey Epstein's black book, because the attorney for the victims called every single person in Jeffrey Epstein's black book. He was the only person willing to help the attorney representing Epstein's victims. He called every single person in Epstein's book. No one returned his call. The only person that returned his call was Trump. He's the only one that helped. Okay, so I think it's very notable that President Trump singled out those 3 men. So what else did he mention in that truth post? He also mentioned that they're going to launch an investigation into businesses involved and or associated with Jeffrey Epstein, including some of the big banks like JP Morgan. And he also made a point to single out or to mention the islands, which I think is really relevant and really important, because I know based off of my research that a lot of the sex trafficking and some of the more horrific things happened at the island, or otherwise known as the pedophile islands. So I think it's really notable that he made a point to mention the island, which he put in quotes. And then he wrote, "Stay tuned." Okay, so that happened a few days ago. So, there's been a lot of people complaining that, they're not doing enough about Epstein, and, Trump doesn't care about Epstein. That's a lie. That's not true. That's never been true. President Trump is the reason why Jeffrey Epstein was arrested in the first place. That never would have happened if Hillary won. But here we now have, the wheels in motion, and now they're moving faster and faster, because we have President Trump's DOJ now officially launching an investigation into Jeffrey Epstein's potential co-conspirators and clients. Okay, so President Trump posted that. And then after he posted that, Pam Bondi responded. And this is what she wrote on X the other day. She said that SDNY U.S. Attorney Jay Clayton is one of the most capable and trusted prosecutors in the country, and I've asked him to take the lead. So he is there's the tweet. And she wrote, "As with all matters, the department will pursue this with urgency and integrity to deliver answers to the American people." So a lot of people have been critical of Bondi, but she responded right away, and she has now officially tapped a U.S. attorney to lead the charge on the investigation into Epstein's co-conspirators. So we have Comey indicted. We have other people involved in the Russiagate hoax and Hillary Clinton that are being looked into and investigated, and most likely will be indicted in the next few months. We have Congress reviewing new documents implicating the Clinton Foundation in crimes. We have Congress, they just voted today to release Epstein files, and now we officially have President Trump's DOJ looking into Jeffrey Epstein's co-conspirators and potential clients. I think that is great. I think that we have a lot of really good things going on, and I think that we are going to see very soon these other elites that were involved in the rape, torture, and trafficking of children go down. So amen to that. Okay, so I went over the Comey stuff. I went over the latest with Jeffrey Epstein. I am going to get a little bit more into Jeffrey Epstein, and I guess I'll start with Rachel Chandler and Balenciaga. Are you guys familiar with Rachel Chandler? Okay, good. You guys are really awake. Most people have no idea who she is. So, and yes, exactly, the child handler. So the reason why I want to get into Rachel Chandler is because I think we're going to be hearing her name soon. I'm hoping and praying that through this new investigation and or through some of these files that are going to be released, we will be hearing more about her. But Rachel Chandler is allegedly one of the women that was Jeffrey Epstein's sex traffickers. And she allegedly is way worse than Allison Mack was, or Ghislaine Maxwell, which is hard to believe because those women are awful and evil and were traffickers as well. Rachel Chandler, though, allegedly was worse than them, and she allegedly was involved in not just the trafficking, she also allegedly was involved in darker abuse potentially satanic ritual abuse. So what happened is, years ago, some people started exposing Rachel Chandler, and there were claims made against Rachel Chandler about her being one of Jeffrey Epstein's alleged sex traffickers. And I want to say this was in 2017, or actually 2017 and 2018. It was years ago. And so at this time, myself and other researchers and anons started looking into Rachel Chandler. And back then, her Instagram page was open, and so were her other social media pages. So I was able to get onto her social media and see the kinds of things that she was posting. And the stuff that she was posting was just absolutely horrifying. I think if we scroll down, we're going to see some more. Okay, so this stuff is that stuff is content from one of the, I believe, designers from Balenciaga. Look at it, the child taped to a chair. It looks like the child's being tortured. Just satanic stuff, just really sick stuff. And these people that work at Balenciaga are tied to and are friends with and or worked with Rachel Chandler. So Rachel Chandler links to Balenciaga as well. And by the way, that's Kim Kardashian dressed in Balenciaga. I mean, she looks like the Gimp from Pulp Fiction. It's so dark and so satanic. And then she dresses her daughter, her minor daughter, like it's so gross. And by the way, I mentioned Kim Kardashian in that article because Kim Kardashian has worked for Balenciaga for years and then continued to work for Balenciaga after they were promoting pedophilia years ago in that horrific ad that they did, which I'm sure you're all familiar with. Okay, this is James Alefantis' Instagram page, which is private. But if we scroll down a little bit, which has horrifying pedophilia, satanic stuff, I mean, it's just sick. So, okay, right here. So Rachel Chandler allegedly was one of Jeffrey Epstein's sex traffickers. And she was the co-owner of allegedly a modeling agency. And as most of you know, a lot of these modeling agencies are fronts for child sex trafficking. Like, we know that Jeffrey Epstein, was funded by Les Wexner and was in business with Les Wexner, who was the owner of L Brands and Victoria's Secrets. And one of the ways that Epstein was able to lure and or procure young women into his sex trafficking ring was by claiming, that he worked for Victoria's Secret and he was asking them to be models, right? Okay, so Rachel Chandler ran this agency called the Midland Agency, and allegedly she was trafficking these models through the Midland Agency. Now, this photo right here of these children in a satanic ritual, you can see that the one girl's laying in a pentagram, and it looks like that one girl's holding a knife, and then they have the other girl in the hood that looks like the satanic robes that they wear. That photo was one of the photos that Rachel Chandler posted on her social media pages. I believe that was from her Tumblr page, okay? Now, if we scroll down, we see, that looks like that was on Rachel Chandler's, I believe, Tumblr page. I mean, it looks like straight out of, did you ever see Eyes Wide Shut? Just like the satanic, okay. Well, it was a fiction movie, but I'm pretty sure it was more a documentary. So that shot right there is from Rachel Chandler's Instagram page, and that shows surveillance footage. Now, it's a lot of people's strong belief that is surveillance footage from one of Epstein's homes, potentially the islands. And there's a lot of people that have done a lot of research on the images in those photos, people that, have enhanced them and whatnot. And there's a lot of people that believe that in one of those photos, there's a bunch of people engaging in cannibalism. And there's another image in there that some people believe it's actually Hillary Clinton. Some people think it's Nancy Pelosi. Yeah, that's the one. I think it looks like Hillary Clinton. Maybe Nancy Pelosi, who knows? But it's a lot of people's opinion that the surveillance footage is from the islands. And it's my very strong opinion that there was an underground facility at the islands where they were engaging in the satanic rituals and potentially cannibalism and adrenochrome and like the much darker stuff. Okay, so if we scroll down, that's a photo that Rachel Chandler posted. Now look closely. She is like, striking a pose like she's this like glamorous model. Look at the girl that she's like locking down. The girl's tied up. She's tied up and she looks terrified. That is probably, in my opinion, one of her victims. It's very sick. And I think there's another photo if we scroll down. Oh, there she is. Okay, so this is very interesting. There she is. That's a private jet. I'm not sure if that's Epstein's jet. That is Rachel Chandler with Bill Clinton. Okay, she has a lot of photos with very, very famous people and Bill Clinton. And last night I did my Slave Princess documentary. We screened it here, and I talked about Britney Spears. And Britney Spears said in her testimony that the only thing that you could compare what happened to her was sex trafficking, right? Well, there is a photo of Britney Spears with Rachel Chandler. So put those pieces together. And there's a lot of photos of her with young celebrities and other celebrities. So I don't know if there's any more photos, but okay. So, I don't think it's a coincidence that President Trump, singled out Bill Clinton and two other men, especially considering that he is linked to Rachel Chandler. So I do believe that we are going to be getting exposure on the darker stuff that Epstein and his network was doing, including exposure on this horrible woman, Rachel Chandler. So, and, just to, sum up the stuff about Rachel Chandler and Balenciaga, she was closely linked to Balenciaga. She did work with Balenciaga. She was also tied to the Standard Hotel, and the Standard Hotel allegedly has been involved in a lot of child sex trafficking. She also worked with Jean-Luc Brunel, who was one of Jeffrey Epstein's co-conspirators. He was arrested years ago after Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell were, and he ended up with the same fate that Epstein ended up with, because after he was arrested, he allegedly committed suicide in prison. So, okay, another topic that we can get into a little bit is we can talk about Jeffrey Epstein, the super spy, and his ties to the intelligence community. And I think that a lot of you guys already, I think by now it's pretty much kind of common knowledge that Jeffrey Epstein, was not just a pedophile and a creep who was trafficking young women. He was also running blackmail operations. And we know that he had cameras in all of his homes, all of them. So he had several homes, but I think the main homes where he was abusing women was the New York home, on the island, and the Zorro Ranch. So a lot of his victims have testified that there were cameras everywhere, like even in the toilet, like cameras in the toilets, like the whole house was under surveillance, right? So there's been a lot of information that's come out via books, articles, documentaries that Jeffrey Epstein was running blackmail operations for the intelligence community. And he had several links to the CIA, he had links to the FBI, and he also had links, of course, to Mossad. And I'm sure most of you guys know this, but Ghislaine Maxwell, who was his co-conspirator, and actually, in my opinion, I think that Ghislaine Maxwell was really running the show, not Jeffrey Epstein. But Ghislaine Maxwell's father, Robert Maxwell, was allegedly a Mossad super spy. There's been entire books written about this. So, there's a lot of claims that he was mostly working for Mossad. And, there's a lot of people that have come out and even said that, Epstein would talk to his friends and associates, just like openly brag how he was running intelligence operations and how he worked for Mossad. And like, you know, he would brag about how he got Prince Andrew, and like, you know, that was considered like the Super Bowl trophy to get in the intelligence world, and like how he had him like totally blackmailed and stuff like that. So in this article, and by the way, this is on my Substack page, so, you know, if you want to look into any of this stuff and read any of my articles, you can, they're all posted for free on my Substack page.